Too powerful, too secret, too controversial, 100 years straight. 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law, marking a pivotal point in America's monetary policy. No longer was Congress in control of the U.S. dollar as the Constitution stipulated. It had been delegated to a private institution.
It's been the most stupendous case of mission creep almost in the recorded history of government.
The Fed was the United States' third attempt to establish a central bank. Andrew Jackson abolished the second one, saying if Congress has the right under the Constitution to issue paper money, it was given them to use themselves, not to be delegated to individuals or corporations. Over the past century, operating under a veil of secrecy, the Federal Reserve has grown into arguably the most powerful financial institution in the world. The Fed is not fully audited, so there is much about it we may never know. Just a few years after its inception, the U.S. entered World War I.
The Fed was then given the authority to buy government debt. It helped finance the war. It became an agency of the government rather than a banker's bank.
But it was during the Vietnam War when President Richard Nixon opened up the present era of central banking.
At Camp David, in the infamous weekend, surrounded by a lot of so-called free market economists, he closed the gold window, severed the anchor to the dollar.
Since the end of the Bretton Woods system, the U.S. dollar has held no intrinsic value, leading to unconventional Fed policies such as quantitative easing, where they're buying unprecedented amounts of securities directly from the market. These are the same securities that helped lead to the crash of 2008. This will be the current Fed Chairman Bernanke's legacy.
He will be regarded as one of the most significant and, time will tell, of course, but perhaps successful Fed chairs in history.
Not everyone thinks this bond buying program will be beneficial in the long run, however.
Ironically, this is the greatest engine of reverse income distribution ever imagined. It's kind of an inverse Robin Hood policy.
And tell me who's benefiting from QE.
It's basically the 1%.
Even economists of opposite thought agree that QE is for Wall Street.
The immediate beneficiaries certainly are the financial institutions that are doing interbank lending.
Former Federal Reserve official Andrew Huszar called it the greatest backdoor Wall Street bailout of all time. But there's about to be a changing of the guard at the Fed. However, President Obama has nominated Janet Yellen, who is openly supportive of QE. So what does the future look like with her as the head?
I think we can safely say that the centrality of the economic position of the Fed is one that is more likely to increase than to decrease.
When the Federal Reserve began, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold. Today, our currency has evolved into basically just sheets of paper that are only backed by the promise of the U.S. government. Only time will tell if all these promises can be kept. In Washington, D.C., Perry Ann Boring, RT.